It started with a smile. Every weekend, a burst of laughter and kids' footsteps filled my home. I thought I was helping. I thought I mattered. But when my brother handed his 6-year-old a key to my front door like it was theirs, something cracked. At first, I shrugged it off. Family, right? You give, you bend, you sacrifice. Until I found out they opened a bank account using my address. That's when I knew. This wasn't love, it was convenience. And if I didn't reclaim my space now, I'd vanish completely from my own life. The scent of cinnamon and butter hung in the air as I pulled a tray of cookies from the oven. My kitchen glowed in the late afternoon sun, the kind of glow you see in magazines, the illusion of warmth, of comfort. From outside, children's laughter rippled through the open windows, sharp and sweet, colliding with the sound of a basketball bouncing on the driveway. My brother's kids. Every weekend it was the same, their small voices echoing through my house as if it had always been theirs. I arranged the cookies on a plate, lined up the mismatched mugs on the counter, and listened to the thundering of feet. My brother's wife, Hannah, trailed behind them, her voice pitched high with amusement. "Emma, you really spoil us," she said, dropping her tote bag by the door like she was home. "It smells like heaven in here." I smiled because that's what I was supposed to do. I set the plate on the table, the cookies disappearing before the steam could fade. For a moment, I pretended the warmth in their laughter filled something inside me. Family, right? You give, you bend, you sacrifice. That's what I told myself. Then the dishwasher groaned, rattled, and died with a sputter. Hannah glanced at the machine and raised an eyebrow. "You didn't get that fixed yet? It was acting up last weekend, too." The question stung. It wasn't what she said, it was the way she said it, as though my own broken appliance was a minor inconvenience to her, as though my role in this household was caretaker, not homeowner. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, forcing a laugh. "Haven't had the time." Her eyes slid past me, already moving on. I pressed my palms to the counter, staring at the cracked tile beneath my feet. I felt it then, a flicker of something I couldn't yet name, a fatigue deeper than physical tiredness, a hollowing out. Later that evening, when the noise had died down and everyone settled into the routines they carried into my house, kids watching cartoons, my brother stretched on the couch, I wandered upstairs. My guest room, once a quiet space for me to read or think, was littered with plastic dinosaurs, half-built Lego sets, and crayons rolling across the floor. The sheets had been tugged halfway off the bed. A pink-stuffed rabbit sat propped against my pillow. I stood in the doorway, not moving. The hum of voices downstairs felt distant, like they belonged to another world. My throat tightened. For the first time, the house felt like it didn't belong to me at all. The next weekend, the crack widened. My brother walked in carrying pizza boxes, tossing his keys on my counter as if it were routine. "Hey, thought I'd make things easier," he said, ruffling his son's hair. Then, casually, he pulled a key from his pocket and pressed it into the boy's small hand. "Here, buddy. For when you want to come in. Saves us from bothering Aunt Emma all the time." My chest constricted. The child's face lit up, proud and oblivious, while Hannah clapped her hands. Now they'll really feel at home. At home! The words clawed at me. I forced a smile, though inside I was screaming. My house wasn't a weekend resort. It wasn't a public playground. But I said nothing. Not yet. One Thursday evening, I left work early, eager for a night of solitude. I pulled into my driveway, already imagining the quiet stretch of hours ahead. But the moment I stepped inside, music thudded from the living room. Laughter bubbled, not the voices of children this time, but strangers. I froze. Hannah was in the middle of my living room, leading a yoga session. Mats rolled out across my floor. A handful of women I'd never seen before mirrored her movements. Candles flickered along the mantel. "Oh, Emma!" Hannah called, rising gracefully to her feet. "We started a little class. Your space is just perfect, so warm, so, I don't know, cozy. Everyone loves it here." She flashed that bright, polished smile. "It's different from those cold studios. I hope you don't mind." My mouth opened, then closed. I didn't trust my voice. The women turned, smiling politely as though I were the guest intruding on their session. My brother wasn't even there. Really? Hannah continued, lowering her tone in a mock whisper. You're lucky. A beautiful home, no kids to mess it up, no husband's mess to clean. So much freedom. You must love it. Her words landed sharp, slicing through me. My fingers dug into my palm, hidden beneath the hem of my cardigan. I forced a laugh, a sound that cracked halfway out of my throat. Of course! Make yourselves comfortable. Inside, I burned, but I said nothing. Again. That night, when the house was finally mine again, I sat in the dark living room, the faint scent of candles still lingering in the air. I stared at the walls that once held my peace. My home. And for the first time, I wondered if silence was going to be the thing that destroyed me. The banquet hall smelled of overcooked roast beef and perfume. A cousin's wedding, loud music, cheap champagne, children running wild between the tables. I sat at the end, a glass of wine in hand, pretending not to notice how my mother had chosen to sit beside my brother's family instead of me. It was easier that way. When someone raised a toast, my mother's voice carried, clear and casual, as though she were stating a fact. Well, Emma's lucky she never had kids. That way, she's free to help her brother's family. She has the time. The laughter that followed wasn't cruel, not directly. It was that polite, complicit laughter, the kind that wraps a dagger in silk. My chest tightened. I forced my lips into a smile, but my wine tasted like ashes. I wanted to ask if anyone realized what they were saying. Did they hear themselves? That my worth had been reduced to availability? That my freedom was not mine but theirs to assign? Later, in the parking lot, Hannah adjusted her shawl and leaned close. Don't take it personally, she said. You know how your mom is. Besides, it's true, isn't it? You have more space in your life than the rest of us. She said it sweetly, with that sugar-coated tone that made it impossible to argue without sounding bitter. At home the following weekend, I invited my oldest friend Claire over for coffee. We sat at the kitchen island laughing, the kind of laughter I hadn't heard in too long. Then Hannah appeared, holding a stack of towels as though she had every right to rummage through my linen closet. Oh, she said, feigning surprise. I didn't know you had company. Her smile was thin, her gaze sharp. Within minutes, she mentioned she had errands, and perhaps Emma and her friend wanted some privacy. Claire left soon after, her goodbye stiff, her eyes flicking between me and Hannah like she'd witnessed something she couldn't quite name. The house felt colder after she left. That night, I posted a vague message online. Some people mistake kindness for obligation. Within minutes, a cousin commented, Here we go again. Drama queen. Another, You should be grateful. Not everyone has family who wants to be around them. My phone buzzed with notifications, each one a small cut. I put it face down and stared at the ceiling, wondering if silence had always been my cage, or if I had built it myself. Days later, I learned something Hannah never intended me to know. Over lunch, my aunt let it slip. It worked out for her, really, after they lost that rental. Lucky she had your place to fall back on. Rental. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. So that was why Hannah had insisted they visit more often. Not because of love, not tradition, not family ties. Their lease had been terminated. They needed somewhere to belong, and my home was convenient. My generosity wasn't generosity at all. It was exploitation. The realization sat heavy in my stomach. A week later at work, my manager called me into her office. Emma, we're considering you for the Europe project. 3 months in London, starting next quarter. It's a huge opportunity. You'd be perfect. The words should have electrified me. Instead, dread coiled in my gut. I knew what weekend it fell on, my nephew's birthday. When I told my family, their reaction was instant and unanimous. Work will always be there, my brother said. But family comes first. Hannah added softly, Imagine how he'll feel if you're not there. You're like a second mother to him. Even my mother chimed in. If you go, don't expect us to understand. Blood matters more than business. Their voices overlapped until I could hardly hear my own thoughts. I folded, as I always did. I emailed my manager that evening, declining the offer. My hands trembled, but my family's approval drowned out my doubt. The next morning, scrolling through social media, I froze. There they were, my brother, Hannah, the kids, posing at a beachside resort, sunglasses tilted, cocktails in hand. Smiling wide, hashtags of family getaway and blessed. No mention of sacrifice, no acknowledgement of the decision I'd made. The betrayal wasn't loud, it was silent, ordinary, wrapped in pixels and filters. But it burned all the same. That night, unable to sleep, I went through the mail piled on the counter. Bills, catalogs, an unfamiliar envelope. I opened it. Inside was a bank statement addressed not to me, but to Hannah. My address, her name. I read it twice, the words blurring. A checking account, opened recently. My address listed as her residence. The room tilted, shadows pressing in. I gripped the counter to steady myself, heart pounding. Convenience. That word again. My home, my address, my life. Just another tool for them to use. The dishwasher clicked in the silence, the sound of metal against metal. My reflection stared back from the dark window, pale and hollow-eyed. This wasn't just intrusion anymore. It was invasion. And for the first time, I felt the faint stirrings of rage. The email from the bank arrived on a gray Monday morning. I skimmed it, expecting the usual balance reminder, until one line made my blood run cold. Suspicious activity detected on your account. Please contact us immediately. I called at once. The voice on the other end was polite, efficient, and devastating. A new insurance policy was opened in your name last week. Premium already paid with a linked account. We just need to confirm the details. My hands shook. What policy? The representative hesitated. Life insurance, substantial coverage, beneficiary listed as... She paused. Your sister-in-law, Hannah. The room blurred. I gripped the edge of my desk, fighting for air. My voice cracked. That's impossible. I never authorized that. They assured me it would be investigated. Fraud. That was the word. Fraud tied to my name, my address, my trust. That evening, I drove to my brother's house, fury surging hot beneath my skin. He answered the door with his usual lopsided grin. Emma, what a surprise! Come in! I didn't move. I held out the printed statement, my hands trembling. What the hell is this? He glanced down, lips twitching. Oh, that. Probably a mix-up. Maybe Hannah filled out something wrong. He chuckled nervously. But you're not going to the police, are you? I mean, family doesn't do that. His casual tone sliced through me sharper than any confession. He wasn't scared. He wasn't sorry. He expected me to swallow it the way I always did. For the first time, I saw the truth without filters. I wasn't family. I was infrastructure. The pillar holding up a facade of respectability. They didn't care for me. They cared for what I provided: space, money, silence. Behind him, Hannah appeared, holding a glass of wine. She studied my face, her smile slow, deliberate. Emma, don't look so shocked. Everyone sacrifices in their own way. Well, you're the mother who never had children. Someone has to fill that space. Isn't that what family means? Her words detonated inside me. The mother who never had children. The memory ripped open like a wound. Age 29. Sterile white hospital walls. The sound of rain against the window. The doctor's gentle tone. I'm sorry. The pregnancy isn't viable. The boyfriend's silence. Then absence. He never came back. I had buried it deep, convinced myself it didn't define me. And now Hannah had dragged it into the light, weaponized it. I stumbled back from the doorway, bile rising. You don't get to say that. My voice was raw, almost unrecognizable. But Hannah only sipped her wine, unbothered. I left without another word, the night air biting, my vision blurred with tears I refused to shed. At home, the walls pressed in. I sat on the floor of my living room, knees pulled tight, unable to stop the flood of memories. The smell of antiseptic, the weight of an empty crib catalog I had thrown out weeks later. The sound of my mother's voice when I told her what had happened. Maybe it's for the best. God has other plans. I picked up the phone now, desperate for comfort, and called her again. Her voice was calm, detached, like always. Emma, maybe you should accept it. Some women aren't meant to be mothers. But look at you. You help your brother. You care for his children. Isn't that purpose enough? That's your role. That's your meaning. Her words landed like stones, building a wall around me. Purpose, meaning. Not for myself, but as a vessel for others. Always others. When the call ended, I stared at the objects around me. The blanket on the sofa, bought by Hannah. The framed photo on the mantel. My brother's kids smiling, my own face barely visible in the corner. The chipped mug in the sink, my nephew's favorite. Every inch of my home carried their fingerprints, their claim. I searched for something, anything, that belonged only to me. I couldn't find it. The air thickened. My chest ached. I curled on the couch, lights off, letting the darkness swallow me whole. And then the silence broke. My phone buzzed on the table. I reached for it, the glow blinding in the blackness. A notification pulsed across the screen. Moving service confirmation. Truck scheduled. Please verify date. My heart stuttered. I hadn't ordered it, or had I? My mind scrambled, trying to remember. Had Hannah used my name again? Or had some small, buried part of me already taken a step I hadn't admitted? The glow of the phone lit my face as I stared at the message, frozen, caught between terror and the first fragile thread of possibility. The morning after the moving truck notification, I woke with a weight in my chest, as though the darkness of the night before had seeped into my lungs. But there was something else beneath it, something new, anger that no longer trembled, anger that felt solid. I opened my laptop and typed words I had never dared to search before. Toxic family dynamics, invisible roles in families, gaslighting in relationships. Article after article poured onto the screen. Stories of people who had lived their entire lives catering to others' needs while erasing their own. They called it the invisible role, the helper, the peacekeeper, the one who gave without ever receiving. Each line struck me like recognition. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't too sensitive. I wasn't crazy. I found a forum where women shared their stories, women who had been told they were selfish when they drew boundaries, dramatic when they protested, cold when they finally said no. Their words sounded like mine. Their shame mirrored my shame. But they weren't weak. They were waking up. One woman wrote, "The day I realized I wasn't selfish, I was exploited. I changed everything." I stared at the sentence until it blurred. I whispered it out loud. Exploited. The word fit like a key in a lock I hadn't known existed. That week, I attended a support group in a church basement. Folding chairs in a circle, coffee gone lukewarm, faces lined with exhaustion, but also with a flicker of hope. When I told my story, my voice cracked, but no one laughed, no one rolled their eyes. They nodded. They understood. "You're not crazy," one woman said softly. "You're waking up." I carried those words home like fire in my chest. Small changes came first. I joined a gym, the clang of weights grounding me, the rhythm of running on a treadmill pounding my rage into something tangible. My body, long ignored, began to feel like mine again. At home, I spread paper across the dining table and sketched a new floor plan. Not renovations, reclamation. Which rooms were mine? Which objects belonged to me? What would stay? What would go? I marked my own territory in ink, a map of belonging I'd been denied. With each step, I felt pieces of myself slotting back into place. But clarity wasn't enough. Strategy had to follow. I scheduled an appointment with a lawyer. I explained everything. My address used without consent, fraudulent accounts, the insurance policy. His expression hardened. "You need to protect yourself. Immediately." Within days, paperwork was filed. My name and address shielded behind legal barricades. Cease and desist letters drafted. The law was no longer abstract. It was armor. I sold off items I didn't need. Old furniture, appliances that had been bought for my brother's kids, clutter that carried no memory of me. Each sail felt like trimming away vines that had been choking me. Finally, I called the moving company listed in that mysterious notification. "Yes," I said, my voice steady. "I'd like to confirm the date." But the move wasn't for me. It was for them. I would let them believe they had won, that I had caved, that I was preparing to leave. Until the moment the truck arrived, and it was their things being carried out the door. The thought filled me with a fierce calm, the kind of calm that comes before fire. That night, I stood in my kitchen, the only light coming from the small lamp over the stove. My phone vibrated in my hand. The confirmation screen glowed, a single button waiting. I pressed it. Confirmation. Your moving service is scheduled. The click was small, but it echoed in my chest like thunder. I looked around at the kitchen, the same counter where Hannah had judged me, the same sink where I had scrubbed her children's dishes, the same floor I had cleaned after their muddy shoes. But tonight, the room felt different. It felt like mine again. My reflection in the dark window was no longer hollow. My eyes burned, sharp and alive. For the first time in years, I wasn't just enduring. I was preparing. The rumble of the moving truck reached my ears before the doorbell did. Its engine idled in my driveway, a massive box of inevitability parked against the morning sky. When I opened the door, my brother's children ran up the steps as usual, their voices high and careless. Then they froze, staring at the truck. Behind them, Hannah frowned. "Emma, what's going on? Are you moving?" I stepped outside, the autumn wind tugging at my hair. My brother appeared, carrying a cooler, his face already twisted with suspicion. "No," I said, my voice even, steady. "I'm not moving." Their confusion sharpened until I let the silence stretch and then delivered the words like a blade. "You are." The driveway seemed to hold its breath. My brother laughed too loudly. "Don't be ridiculous. What are you talking about?" I turned toward the movers who were waiting by the truck, clipboards in hand. "Start with the guest room," I said. "All of their things go." Hannah's face blanched. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious," I replied. My brother's expression shifted from disbelief to rage. His voice boomed, drawing the children back behind him. "You don't get to do this, Emma. This is family. You don't just throw family out." "I don't?" I pulled a folder from under my arm, thick with papers. "Then explain this." I handed him the printouts. 2 years of receipts, grocery bills, utility spikes, repairs, every line highlighted, every expense documented. He flipped through them, his anger faltering into something smaller. "I've carried this family on my back while you treated me like a doormat," I said. "This ends now." His phone was in his hand before he even answered. "Mom!" he barked into it. "Come here! She's lost her mind." It didn't take long. My mother's car pulled into the driveway, gravel crunching under her tires. She stepped out, her face lined with disappointment before I had even spoken. "Emma," she began. "What have you done?" I held her gaze. "I've done what you never would. I kept track. For 2 years, I documented everything I gave while they took, and I'm done." She tried to wave it away, as if this were another petty squabble. But when I placed the folder in her hands, her eyes skimmed the pages, her lips tightening. "Gas, electricity, food, repairs," I listed, my voice rising. "Thousands of dollars, hundreds of hours, my life swallowed whole, while you all applauded their entitlement." Her silence was answer enough. Then I turned and the twist struck. From the side of the driveway, a camera clicked. A woman stepped forward, young, sharp-eyed, notebook in hand. "This is Maya Patel," I said. "Journalist. She's writing a piece for Modern Woman, on women who give until they disappear, on what happens when they refuse to vanish." Hannah's gasp cut the air. "You invited the press?" "Yes," I said. "Because if you won't acknowledge what you've done, the world will." The storm hit then. My brother's voice thundered accusations. Hannah shouted about betrayal, about humiliation. They hurled insults, demanded repayment for imagined debts, accused me of destroying the family's name. But for the first time, I didn't flinch. I don't need your money, I said, my voice clear, cold. I need my freedom. The words stilled them, if only for a heartbeat. And then, from the edge of the crowd, neighbors now watching, relatives trickling in, my Aunt Ruth stepped forward. She was small, quiet, often overlooked, but her voice carried like a bell. She's right, Ruth said. I've watched long enough. Emma has been used. We all saw it, and we let it happen. No more. The shift was immediate. My mother's eyes darted between us, her certainty cracking. Hannah's face twisted, but her grip on control slipped. And my brother, his fury couldn't hide the flicker of fear. Because Ruth wasn't just family. She was trusted, respected, and her siding with me pulled the ground from beneath them. The movers worked in silence, carrying boxes out of my home, each thud on the truck bed like punctuation to a truth long ignored. By evening, the facade of our family had collapsed. Whispers spread about my brother's finances, about the false accounts, the insurance fraud. An investigation was already opening, Ruth confirmed. I stood in my doorway, watching the truck doors close on the pieces of their intrusion. My house looked emptier, yes, but lighter too. Inside, Hannah's perfume no longer lingered. My brother's laughter no longer echoed. The air belonged to me again. And for the first time in years, I could breathe. The weeks after the truck left were strangely quiet, like the house itself was exhaling for the first time in years. Silence didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt expansive, alive, filled with possibility. I began to write, small notes at first, then longer reflections, until one evening I pressed publish on a blog post titled Reclaiming My Space. The words spread faster than I imagined. Messages poured in from women I'd never met. This is my story too. I thought I was alone. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. Even the cousins who had mocked me online months earlier now sent private apologies. We didn't realize how much you carried, one wrote. Another admitted, I laughed because it was easier than facing the truth in my own home. I didn't reply to all of them. I didn't need to. The act of telling my story had already shifted something inside me. Soon, invitations arrived, community centers, bookstores, even universities. They wanted me to speak, to lead workshops on boundaries, on reclaiming identity after being erased by family roles. I named the series Reclaim Your Space. In the first session, 30 women sat in a circle, eyes wary, shoulders tense. I told them about the Sunday afternoons that weren't mine, about the bills stacked high with no thanks, about the silence that nearly devoured me. And then I told them about the folder of receipts, the movers, the final words. I don't need money. I need freedom. When the session ended, women lingered, some crying, some laughing nervously, all of them lighter. One whispered, I thought saying no would kill me. Maybe it's the only thing that can save me. Not everyone was ready. But that wasn't my burden anymore. A week later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. The handwriting was Hannah's. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. Inside, a single sheet of paper. I see now what I did to you. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even deserve your time. I just need you to know. I finally understand. No excuses, no pleas, just acknowledgement. I folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer. Not out of forgiveness, but closure. That night, I pulled down the old family photo from the mantel. All of us together, smiles rehearsed, arms linked, me half-shadowed on the edge. I slid it into a box, taped it shut, and placed it in the back of a closet. Not destroyed, not displayed, just put away. Freedom didn't erase history. It simply gave me permission to choose what I carried. Months passed, and the house filled with my presence again. I painted the living room a shade of soft blue. I planted herbs on the kitchen windowsill. I filled the guest room with bookshelves, my books, not borrowed clutter. The air smelled of lavender and paper instead of other people's perfume. And then I booked a ticket. Not for work, not for anyone else. For me. I found myself in Provence, the sun drenching the earth in gold, lavender fields stretching farther than I could see. I walked between the rows, The hum of bees in the air, the fragrance wrapping around me like a blessing. A little girl darted out from behind a row, her hair wild in the wind. She looked up at me, her French accent soft but clear. "Madame, where do you come from?" I crouched down, smiling, the question catching me off guard. For a long time, I would have answered with a city, a house, a family name. But now, the words rose easily, light on my tongue. "I come from a place where I once forgot myself," I said, "and now I remember." She laughed, twirled, and disappeared back into the lavender. As the sun dipped lower, I pulled out my phone, opened the camera, and set it to record. I looked straight into the lens, into the eyes of whoever would watch. "If you've ever been used by family, listen to me," I said. "You are not selfish for saying no. You are not cruel for choosing yourself. You are not crazy for wanting space. You are simply coming back home, to yourself." The wind carried my words away, scattering them across the fields, across time, across all the silent rooms where someone like me was still waiting. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone.